Hello, and welcome to the Call Center Excellence video series. This video is titled Update Calls. My name is Lucas McAlpin, and I am one of your customer experience coaches here at Nexstar. My contact information will be listed at the end of this video. Today's video will address the importance of update calls and why they matter so much. So let's get started. When I talk about update calls, I'm referring to the calls made, usually by the dispatcher, that provides the customer with a status update of the service call that they are expecting to receive that day. Now, these are not the update calls to let them know we're on our way. Again, these are not the update calls to let them know we are on our way. While those calls have their own level of importance, they are a completely separate conversation than the update calls that I'll be talking about today. Now, whether you've made the change to dispatching without time windows or you never intend to make that change, the importance of making update calls to your customers is relevant to the call center. This is one of the most common misconceptions that exists. Even if you have time windows, making update calls will make your life easier. And more importantly, they'll create a better experience for your customers. Every day I coach dispatchers, I hear that the importance of these update calls is paramount to their success. Now, this is for several reasons that we'll discuss in this call. First, let's talk about making update calls for the contractors that are operating without time windows. Now, if you aren't familiar with the concept of no time windows, you can visit the Call Center Excellence section of the member website to learn more, or you can simply talk to one of your customer experience coaches. The idea behind update calls is simple. You make the customer aware of the status of their service call. And when you booked the call with the customer, they were not told a time window, and they need and deserve to be informed of the status of their call. The process of making update calls to customers without a time window becomes a necessity in order to avoid upsetting the customer and allows you to provide an extra level of service to these customers. They're allowing you to be flexible with their time, and they deserve to be respected for that. Making update calls, even if you have time windows, is extremely important for the same reasons. It allows the customer to get a status update on their call. And again, this is not the update to let them know the tech is on their way. This status update gives them peace of mind, knowing that they haven't been forgotten and that their call is still on your board. The process is not a lot different, except that you'll be reminding the customer of the window that they are booked in, rather than leaving the discussion open. When we talk about making update calls, we recommend that you start after you've gotten the technicians to their first call. And if you've had a chance to take a look at the day ahead of you, you'll be ready. We typically suggest 2 hours between update calls. So something like 9, 11, 1, and 3 works well to complete these calls. We've also heard that 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock works just as well. The process throughout the day gets less and less hectic because there are fewer calls that need to be made as the day progresses. You'll also have some customers ask that you simply text them or just call when you're on your way. And these are perfectly acceptable and actually tie in nicely to the whole point of making the calls in the first place. The concept of over-communication needs to take precedence here, and we would rather err on the side of caution by over-communicating and being told to slow down than under-communication, which can result in an upset customer. The individual making these calls should be able to adjust at a moment's notice, since each call will be different. If needed, you can work toward prioritizing calls based on the people that don't have specific time constraints. This means that the customers that haven't been given a time window should be called first. It's still important to make the update call to the customer that has given you time constraints. However, you can make these calls toward the end of your update call session since their time frames have already been somewhat established. In an ideal scenario, the first call will be completed at 9 o'clock. This call will go out to all the customers that are on your dispatch board for the day and does not include the calls that the technicians are already at. During this first call, you are simply letting the customer know that they are on your schedule for the day. You can also add in a point about the reason for our visit as well, and this is to confirm that their concern is still taking place. For example, Mr. Smith, this is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services. I'm calling to let you know that you're on our schedule for today. It looks like we're coming out to take care of that leaky toilet. Is that correct? Okay, great. I also see that you need about 32 minutes to arrive safely at your home. I'll make sure to keep you up to date throughout the day, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Next, 2 hours later, we'll make the second update call. This will be a simple statement that, Mr. Smith, this is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services again. I wanted to confirm that you're still on our schedule for that leaky toilet. Right now, we're running on time and it looks like we'll be out to you later this afternoon. The 1 o'clock call will be made to only the remaining calls on your customer list for the day. It could be paired with a text message or an email because of the customer request earlier in the day. Now, regardless, it's just as important to make these update calls as it is the 9 a.m. versions. If you're making a call to a customer at this time, it's likely that they will either be your next call or your last call. And if you're confident in making this statement to the customer, it's perfectly acceptable. However, if it is a low priority call that runs the risk of being rescheduled for any reason, you'll want to leave those details out. An example of this short call could sound like this. Mr. Smith, this is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services. It appears that everything is going as scheduled. We'll be out to your home later this afternoon. We'll give you a call when we're on our way. Your final update call each day should be made at 3. Many of these customers will have already been told or assume that they would be the last call of the day. But it's nice for them to know that you're still working to get them taken care of. That call could sound something like this. Mr. Smith, this is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services. I wanted to let you know that you are our next call on our service tech schedule. We'll be calling when we're on our way. This call is very similar to the 1 o'clock call, but it can be adjusted based on the conversation that you've had with the customer throughout the day. As with any new concept, there are pros and cons to making update calls. In our opinion, the only con is that making the 9 a.m. calls can take a little bit of extra time. And this can be countered by adjusting your schedule to allow for that 9 to 10 o'clock time frame to be cleared for the dispatcher. This is so that they can be dedicated to making these phone calls. We've heard some dispatchers express concern with bothering a customer too much. Now, our normal response is that you should absolutely be aware of the demeanor of your customer. And if you get the sense that you're bothering them, then it's perfectly fine to offer another method of updates. For example, I might say, Mr. Smith, would you like me to call you with future updates, or would you prefer a text or an email? And that opens the door to other options that may be more convenient for the customer, but it doesn't shut down the update call process altogether. Now, some of the benefits include easier rescheduling. In the event that you need to reschedule, it becomes much easier when you're calling someone that you've already spoken to. On the next 3 slides, I'll present some optional reschedule scripts that you can use when making these update calls. Another benefit is that when we're working diligently to create an experience for the customer, we do that by doing things that our competition is not doing. This is hard work to make update calls. Typically, the competition is not real hip on doing hard work. Now, one other benefit is that the update calls allow introductions to be made. So now the service tech is just calling on an old friend instead of making that quick introduction that is always somewhat awkward or stands the risk of being awkward. I had mentioned that the update calls can make rescheduling much easier, and we'll explore 3 options for rescheduling scripts on this slide and the following 2 slides. Please feel free to grab a picture of the screen or a screenshot, or you can email us to ask us for a copy of these scripts. Now, option 1 would be, Mr. Moore, I'm just checking in with you to provide you with this update call with respect to the tech visit that we're working toward today. Now, let me just confirm that your air conditioner is still working. Okay, good. Now, what I do need to ask is that if you'd be willing to reschedule this call for a day later this week, where of course we'll give your call a priority status, please know that we would appreciate that. And that if you ever find yourself in an emergency situation, we'll be sure to handle the urgency of your situation with the same diligence. Reschedule script number 2 focuses on the level of quality that we pride ourselves on. It also emphasizes the fact that we are calling all of our customers to work on finding an opportunity to reschedule, rather than giving the appearance that we just picked them randomly. Mr. Smith, this is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services. We've ran into some rather lengthy repairs today, and we pride ourselves on always fully addressing any customer's concerns before heading to the next client. We're truly concerned with quality over quantity, and I wanted to know if you have any flexibility in your busy schedule, as I'm calling all of my customers who are fortunate enough to not be faced with dire emergencies to see if they'd be willing to reschedule to another day. Reschedule script number 3 begins to work toward offering an option of a credit on the account for the inconvenience of scheduling. Oftentimes we'll be asked if the customer accepts the reschedule request, should we still provide the credit? I would venture to say that when you're given something unexpectedly and without a necessary reason, it tends to be more memorable. This example starts with, Mr. Smith, good afternoon. This is Lucas with Nexstar Home Services. And I'm calling as I know I was going to have an expert address your concern for you today. And Mr. Smith, I've had quite a few customers with dire emergencies call in today. And I was reaching out to all of our customers who are fortunate enough not to be faced with similar circumstances. I'm calling to ask if you might have any flexibility in your schedule. If you did indeed have some flexibility, I would greatly appreciate it and would be willing to apply a $50 credit on your account as a way of saying thanks for rescheduling. I could get your issue addressed on Tuesday or Friday if that is something that would work for you. Now, in closing, I'd like to add that with the advent of multiple forms of communication and the ability to reach customers everywhere they are, it's imperative that we use the resources that we have available to us to over-communicate with our customers. Remember, we are one of many options that they can choose from, and everything we do creates an experience or an expense. Make sure that you're aware of the actions that increase the likelihood of a referral, a 5-star review, or a repeat customer. Thank you for attending this Call Center Excellence video series on update calls. The customer experience coaches here at Nexstar Network are happy to help any way we can, and you're welcome to reach out to any of us with questions. I've listed each of our contact information on the screen, and feel free to reach out to us for any help. This concludes the Call Center Excellence video series. Thank you, and make it a great day.